Have you ever skipped lunch or worked on your one day off just to squeeze someone in? Know that you are not alone. I have been there, sitting on my couch, pissed that a new client texted me to jump the line because Samantha said I'd fit her in if she asked nicely. And what did I do? I said yes. Not because I wanted to, but because it felt good to feel needed. It fed this part of me that thought my only worth was how busy I was, how booked out I could be, and how far I could push myself before breaking. So if you're stuck in the same cycle, burning yourself out, saying yes when you want to say no, and secretly resenting the business you once loved, this episode is for you. We're talking about why people pleasing is not just about being nice, it's about nervous system safety, how constantly saying yes teaches people to ignore your boundaries, and how to start reclaiming your time without guilt or fear of disappointing others. So grab your cozy socks, get under your favorite blanket, and let's dive in. Hey there, you just stumbled into the Anxious Creative Podcast, where overthinking turns into ahas, mess ups become magic, and anxious spirals, totally part of the process. I'm Dawn Bradley, your messy, imperfect host, here to help you, the recovering people pleaser, the perfectionist, to stop chasing the unachievable and start embracing the chaos. Spoiler alert, that's where the real magic happens anyway. So buckle up, friend, because we're about to have some laugh so hard till you cry moments, a few hard truths to help you grow, and naturally a little, or let's be honest, a lot, of oversharing. You ready? Let's dive in. So there I was, sitting at home, so frustrated that a brand new client had just texted me saying, I know you have online booking, but my friend Samantha said that if I just text you, I can get in sooner. I was angry, and yet what did I do? I fit her in. Because it felt so good to be needed. It felt so good to be wanted. And it was validating this part of me that didn't believe that I was worthy of success. And the only way I thought I was worthy of success if I was booked out, slammed, pushing myself to the limit, and pushing myself too far. Because I had this underlying narrative that I'm just a hairstylist. And so breaking free from people pleasing has probably been one of the hardest things I have done, not only in my business, but in my life. And the pendulum has swung. And so I want you to know that if you're on this journey of learning how to say no, it's breaking free from the addiction of being fully booked or being overbooked as well. That fear of seeing a gap in my schedule and going, oh my gosh, everything's going to plummet out of control. And being able to honor the process while doing it has been one of the hardest things. So let me back up. I got into the industry as a hairstylist in 2001. And I went to school, and then April of 2002, I started my first job, and I was really scared and nervous. I'm like, what if I mess up? And then things started to gain traction. I started to get comfortable knowing how to get new clients in. I really stepped out of my comfort zone to build my clientele, which is one of the things that I teach in Rock Your Business and in my client building bundle is if I, as a shy, anxious, awkward, small town girl, can get out of my own way and learn to talk to strangers and invite them in over and over again and face rejection over and over again, because that's the name of the game. It's not about waiting till you never get rejected. It's about being rejected along the process. Then anyone can do it. And so if I was able to build this clientele and check mark, check, did it, feeling like I'm booked like months in advance. And then I opened up my own business and it felt so successful. And I felt like I was checking off these boxes, and it felt so good to be like proving everyone wrong that told me I could never make it in this industry or that I couldn't have a profitable, sustainable career in this industry. My own hairstylist in high school told me, if you want to be able to financially provide for yourself someday, Dawn, do not become a hairstylist. So I had everyone, it felt anyway, in my perception, in my perspective, that everyone was against me. And I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so in order to prove everyone wrong, I pushed myself to the limit. I was like, you're not going to be right. You're not going to be right about me. I'm going to prove different. And I did it in such an unhealthy way. And so when I went out on my own, no longer was I stuck to a schedule. And this is where I think the people pleasing with self-employed creatives can get really scary, is we can work whenever we want. And it feels really good to be wanted and needed. And then it becomes this transactional thing where you tell me how amazing I am, I give you what you want. And so I got to a point where I was working basically like 2 full-time jobs, bringing in over 6 figures, and it felt good. And everyone was like, wow, Dawn, you're doing so well. And the praise kept coming in, and I didn't want to quit. Because what if I stop doing these things for people? What if I stop going above and beyond? What if I stop staying late, squeezing people in, coming in on my day off? Will this validation go away? And if the validation goes away, then is it true that I'm not worth it? The only way I'm worth it, the only way I'm valuable, the only way I have something to offer is if I'm giving to others. And it was a really hard reality, but it started in probably 2012. 2 years being into self-employed, where I'd get sick or I'd throw my back out. I'd have to cancel a 12-hour day that was like double booked all the way through with clients. So it was like, I really had to think, am I sick enough to not go to work? Because now I'm going to have to reschedule these people. And there was this internal pressure of, I don't reschedule them at my earliest opening. I have to reschedule them as soon as possible. I can't bump them to the back of the line because I canceled on them. So if I phoned in sick one day, I had to make up for that above and beyond my regular schedule, was the pressure I put on myself. And so it was this endless cycle of getting sick, pushing through the sickness until I was like bedridden, then calling and canceling. I didn't have anybody working for me, so I had to reach out to all my clients and cancel. I had to reach out and rebook them. I just made more work for myself by not being able to work. My back would get thrown out. I wouldn't take vacations. I worked extra. And then I was like, I got so sick of it that the most logical thing for me to do was to jump ship and move to a new city. Now there was other factors as well, but you know what? I was like, oh, people in a new city will respect me more. I just really thought that I could start over from scratch. And I always tell people like the easiest way to implement boundaries or the easiest way to change your course of direction is to move to a new city where no one knows you and start over. But it does require a different version of you. And I didn't step up in a new way. I just recreated the same problem. I got fully booked in under 12 weeks because I knew how to do that. But I wasn't yet knowing how to be specific about the type of clientele that I wanted to come book in with me. And so from 2010 to 2014, I burnt out, kept going, kept pushing, small recoveries. And it wasn't until August 30th of 2016 where I landed myself in the hospital thinking I was dying of a stroke. I remember thinking this is my last night on earth. I couldn't catch my breath. My arms were going numb. My face was going soggy. I'm like, this is it. And it turns out it was a massive stress-induced panic attack. Now, I would wish this, I don't know who my worst enemy is, but I would never wish this on my worst enemy. Thinking that I was going to take my final breath and what I was thinking about that whole night was work is not, I shouldn't be thinking about work if I'm thinking I'm dying. Work had consumed my entire life. I was overbooked. I was pushing myself to the limit. If someone wasn't happy, I dropped everything. I had no sense of self. I didn't prioritize myself, and I lost myself in the process. Now, this is something that I've seen not only happen in my business, but also happen in my personal life. In order to feel needed and wanted and valuable is I completely water myself down, and I try to be something for everyone. And really, if you've been listening to this podcast long enough, you know about my Bourbon Doesn't Give a Shit podcast episode, which we'll maybe try to link in the show notes. I'm not sure if we have that link, but if we can link it in the show notes, awesome. It's an oldie but a goodie. And basically saying that if you try to be for everyone, you end up being for no one. And so to be of service isn't to be self-sacrificial. To be of service is to prioritize other people's needs as much as your own. So really, when you think about that, and it's such a beautiful book, it's called A Return to Love. To be of service isn't to be self-sacrificial. Is to prioritize others' needs as much as your own. So if you're not prioritizing yourself, you shouldn't be prioritizing other people. And one thing I've adapted is taking care of myself first thing in the morning. Taking care of my physical health, my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health. And making sure that I don't get excessive. It's hard. The pendulum can swing where all you do is take care of other people, and then you shut the door, slam it, lock it with the deadbolt, and go, I need to take care of myself. But how do we find balance? And I really think balance isn't something that you achieve and stay at. It's a juggling act, because if you think of a scale, like the old school scale that you'd use in high school science class, you put 3 marbles on this one and then put 3 marbles on the other one and they'll balance, right? But sometimes life puts extra marbles somewhere. And then you have to recalibrate. So balance is a juggling act of recalibrating when different stresses and different things come up. If I'm going, for example, I'm just back from New York City speaking and teaching at the International Beauty Show. This week, I gave so much in New York. I stood on stages. I spoke to students. Now I have to recalibrate because I gave a lot. I need to recalibrate and replenish. And so being really consciously aware of what you need and how to honor yourself so that you can take care of other people. I always say people pleasing is people manipulation, because when you're people pleasing, when you are saying yes to something that you know that you can't follow through on, or you know that you can't do, but you're scared, it's coming from a place of, I'm nervous of an adverse reaction, so I'm going to say yes to this person to control their response to me, to keep my nervous system feeling safe. It's not about honoring my needs. It's about feeling safe. And that is probably one of the biggest aha things I have learned in recent years is I'm not doing this. This isn't a self-sacrifice of pleasing them. This is the most selfish thing I'm doing is I'm not being honest with someone because my nervous system doesn't feel like it can handle if they don't respect my request or have an adverse reaction. I think of, I don't want to disappoint this person, but really I'm disappointing myself, and learning how to honor myself first and foremost, and learning the vocabulary to say with it so that the person on the receiving end can understand it and hear it. So when I think of this, I think of like a client being like, Dawn, like I forgot to book in. I have this event. You're the only one who can do my hair. And in the past, I would have been like, okay, let's squeeze you in. And I wouldn't have had enough time to do the quality of work that I need, like the time in order to do the quality of work that I'm used to giving them. I'd squeeze them in. They wouldn't get the result they want because I didn't have the time. I was rushing it. And then it ends up being a fix and they don't get it done before they go to this thing. And they're feeling worse about their hair than if they would have just not got it done. But I thought I had to say yes because I had to appease them. Now, instead, what I would do today is, oh my goodness, thank you so much for saying that I'm the only one who can do your hair. It makes me so happy to hear that. And I really want to be able to get you in before then. The reality is I don't have the time and I'm already fully booked. And I know that if I tried to squeeze you in, you wouldn't get the quality of work that you're looking for from me, which wouldn't result in me being the only one who knows how to do your hair. Like, I want to say yes so bad, but I have to say no because I know that I'll disappoint you if I say yes. And so know that this is about taking care of you and making sure that, yeah, I have to say no to doing your hair, which means you have to go to XYZ without it done or find someone else to do it this time. But I just don't have the capacity, or I don't have the time, or I know that the quality will suffer, and that's not fair to you. And as I've learned to communicate more clearly, compassionately, and empathetically, letting people in on what's going on internally and why I'm saying no, rather than before I used to think, oh, like I have to justify it, or I have to like tell them like, no, and I just didn't know how to advocate for myself. But learning that like saying no and stopping people pleasing can be the most caring thing you can do for other people. And it can be really hard with certain personalities and certain types. And there's scenarios in my real life right now and the people around me where sometimes people just don't take no for an answer. And learning that if someone keeps continuing pushing back up against it, but I keep thinking of climbing, but I have to get my hair done. And what am I going to do? And if someone goes, what am I going to do? Or I expected this. Not taking it on personally has been really hard work, but learning to go, that really sucks. And I understand. I have to remind you that my answer is no. And it's really hard work when someone's no, like you have to, like, again, I'm done. I think of this like more in personal life. And this is something that recently I've witnessed is like learning to be like, hey, thank you for sharing that with me. My answer is final and I'm done discussing it. And that's when it gets severe. I don't see that happening with client relationships as much. I've had to maybe do that twice in my career where I've had to continue to say no. But what has happened in the past is I'd say no and someone would be like, but you're the only one. And I'd be like, let me double check my schedule. And and then I would say yes. And what I taught them is to not trust my first no. And then I got bitter and resentful because I'd say no and then they'd always ask for more. And then I'd be like, oh, now I feel if they ask again, I have to say yes. And I'm just training them to go, don't trust my first answer. If I push and push, I'll get what I want. And I know you don't want to create that same thing. Or maybe you're currently living in that situation where you're like, oh, that is it. Hey, I'm fully booked. Sorry. And they're like, oh, are you sure? Because I don't know, like you're the only one. And then you go check your schedule and you find a way to squeeze them in. You just trained them that your first answer is not your real answer. And then next time you're going to be frustrated when they continue to ask, but that's because they know you've trained them to not trust your first answer. And so changing that habit is really hard. Learning to slow down and change direction. Like I said, the easiest thing to do is pack up shop, ship out, and start over fresh somewhere new. But that's going to present a whole nother set of challenges. Either you stay where you're at and you work through learning how to communicate more clearly and letting clients know there's change happening and change is hard and I'm here to walk through it with you. But the reality is what I've been currently doing isn't sustainable. And so I need to adopt new systems in my business. Or you can jump ship and start over, but that's going to present other challenges. Both ways are going to require a new version of yourself. And that's the most important thing to remember is it is going to require a new version of you. The current version of you has served its purpose. the next level version of you, that version of you that's fully booked with clients that respect you, that version of you that respects themselves enough to say no, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, that person who enforces their policies, doesn't just use them as threatening and hoping that clients follow them, that person that charges full price and stops emotionally discounting, that person that confidently and compassionately and empathetically communicates with their clients, letting them in on the vulnerability of what's going on in your life, in your business, and sharing with them, these are the changes so that I can continue to serve you and I'd love to continue to see you. That person who raises their prices confidently, knowing that they've looked at their business. This is the stuff that my students inside of Rock Your Business are doing all the time. And it's so beautiful to see them stepping out scared, stepping out nervous, doing the thing, realizing confidence comes after action. And so many of my clients, like for example, like it's usually for enforcing cancellation policies. They're so nervous. They're so scared. When they implement the system and the way that I teach it inside of Rock Your Business using the EASE method, empathize, appreciate, be straightforward, and be earnest. I've never had anybody say they got an adverse reaction that they couldn't work with. Most clients are like, yeah, charge my card, or, oh, absolutely, let me move something around. It's really beautiful to see that when you start to do your due diligence, when you learn to compassionately and empathetically communicate to your clients that you're not doing something to them or at them, you're doing it for them, their response to you changes. It softens. When you let them know, I'm really nervous and I'm really scared because I really care about you and this is hard for me to make change in my business, but I need to in order to stay open. Therefore, XYZ, clients meet you where you're at like 9 times out of 10. Now, I can't guarantee they will always. But as you do this, you'll rewire your nervous system. You'll have healing to understand that you're safe and you're allowed to change in business. You're allowed to change as a person. You're allowed to change, period. And the people who really respect you and understand you, when you communicate clearly with them and not abruptly, which oftentimes when we're nervous or anxious, things can come out abrupt because we don't know how to say it. But when you learn the communication techniques that I teach inside of Rock Your Business and in the mentorship, it's really magical what can happen. So I want you to know that if you're overbooked and over it right now, if you need to break free from the people pleasing, continue to stick around, stay on my IG, hang out here at the podcast, because I'm going to continue sharing with you more and more about how to build a business that is wildly successful and honors you and takes care of your clients at the same time, building a life, business, and bank account you've always dreamed of. Woo! I know this one probably hit close to home, but I hope you're walking away from this episode with a little more clarity, a little more confidence, and a whole lot more compassion for yourself. Because listen, your worth isn't measured by how much you can bend, stretch, or sacrifice for others. You are allowed to have boundaries. You're allowed to take care of yourself, and you're allowed to build a business that respects you just as much as you respect your clients. So if you've been stuck in the people pleasing and overbooking yourself to the point of burnout, consider this your permission slip to stop. You're not selfish. You're smart. And the right clients, they'll stick around when you start honoring yourself. And hey, if this episode gave you even one tiny aha moment, I would love to share it with you or have you share it with a friend. So DM me on Instagram at Dawn Bradley. I read every message and I love hearing from you. It really fuels me to keep creating episodes like this. And next week's episode, oh my gosh, it's a juicy one. No more walking on eggshells, handling tough client conversations with ease. If your palms get sweaty when you think about having to talk price increase or enforce policies, this one's for you. I'll be sharing how to approach those awkward combos with empathy and confidence so you can stop dreading confrontation and start earning your clients' respect. So until then, stay weird, stay messy, and most of all, stay unapologetically you. We'll see you next week.